Hey, good morning, guys. It is February 18th. It's Levi's birthday today, so for those of you who know him, reach out and say happy birthday to him if you haven't already. Um, Chambers today is talking about despair, and he uses the scripture reference Matthew 26:46, and it's interesting. We can sometimes see this as kind of a normal story of normal events, because in Jesus' life there were a lot of dramatic events that became normal. His world was there was a lot of things happening, but this is literally the pivotal moment of history, and I don't say that hyperbolically. I'm being serious. This is the moment where everything hinges from this moment where Jesus is betrayed and the crucifixion starts to take place. And it's Matthew 26. They're with him in the garden, and they are all praying and watching. Jesus is the one praying, though, and they fall asleep. And then he comes back and he wakes them, and they fall asleep again, and they fall asleep again. And he finally wakes them and says, "Rise," as in Matthew 26:46, "Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." And at this point, they do rise, and this is where Peter, pulls out a sword, and everything starts to happen towards the cross at this moment. This moment kind of is the arrest and the trial and the crucifixion. So really, really, really big, key, pivotal moment in history, and they fell asleep. And so what Chambers is wanting us to understand, that there are times where we do something and we can let it sink us into this state of despair. And he says, the sense of the irreparable, we've done something we cannot repair, is apt to make us despair. If we imagine that this kind of despair is exceptional, we're mistaken. It's a very ordinary human experience. Everyone has done something or failed to do something at some point in their life, well, if you live long enough, that seems irreparable. And the truth is, it may be. It may be irreparable here on earth with other human beings, but it doesn't make us. I want to make sure I use my words carefully here. It doesn't make us unable to be used by God for the next thing. And so what Chambers is trying to encourage us to do, just like the disciples, is to not sit there and think, oh, I should have. This is a huge problem for me. If only I had. Anytime I break something, I'll be working on a car and I'll break something and I think, I knew I was torquing that too much. I knew I shouldn't have. I knew, if only I hadn't, or if only I had. And what Chambers is trying to encourage us to do here, just like the disciples had to eventually figure out, is, okay, you screwed up, you fell asleep, you weren't a support to Jesus when he needed you. You cannot alter it. Right in the middle of the study for today, you cannot alter it. Let the past sleep. And but it says, but arise and go to the next thing. Go to the next thing that God's called you to do. And he wraps it up with this, and I think this is a really great way to think about it, because what happens is failure and despair will lead you, if you're not careful, will lead you to inaction and surrender to the wrong things. You'll surrender to defeat. And he says, never let the sense of failure corrupt your new action. And so while sometimes we do, when faced with failure, we need to take a breath and say, okay, what led to that? How can I change that nature in me, or those tendencies in me, so that it doesn't happen again? Or what can I do? God says he provide a way of escape. What can I do to better prepare for that? But don't stop and stay there. Don't stay in this sense of self-loathing and I want to say, we sometimes take the word failure and we make it. And by the way, I'm speaking from experience. We take the word failure and we make it our identity. When we have failed, we take that word and say, "Oh, I am a failure." And I'd say that's where Chambers is encouraging us, and Jesus would as well, to go to the next thing, do the next thing, and eventually you do enough of those things, and you learn from your failures, that God makes you more useful. All right, do something good today. Thanks, guys.